All right, gentlemen, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Tonight we are sponsored by Mr. and Mrs. Bobby Soleimani, Leilui Nishmat Farngis Yafa Bat Yechezkel and Sheku Yafa Bat Yechezkel. May Hashem elevate their neshamot higher in Gan Eden. May they be Militzei Yosher for the family and for all of Klal Yisrael. Zad Hashem. We're learning for the Refuah Shlema of Shmuel Moshe ben Penina. Any other names, guys?
Abraham ben Nahama.
Abraham ben Nahama. Any other names? Yoshua ben Miriam. Shed ben Dora Chabat Shoshana.
My father is in May 26th and today's night.
Sure. Leilui Nishmat.
It's Sion ben Yosef.
Sion ben Yosef. Okay. May all those of you that are flashing might have it. May all those neshamot go higher in Gan Eden. Okay. So we begin the Parashat. V'daber Hashem el Moshe Bamidbar Sinai be'oel moed be'echad lachodesh hasheni b'shana hashenit le'tzetam me'eretz Mitzrayim lemor. So it says, Hashem spoke to Moshe Rabbeinu in the desert of Sinai, and this was the first. This is the second month of the year, meaning it's the month of Iyar, in the second year after they left Egypt. Okay, Chodesh Iyar. Okay, so now there's a mitzvah that Hashem tells Moshe and Aharon. He tells them you have to go around and you have to count, take a census of the entire Jewish people. I want a census telling me everybody from age 20 to 60. Kol yotzei tzava beYisrael. Anybody who's eligible to be in the army. Ages 20 to 60. Now, this is the first question. Why do you need the census? So that, of course, Rashi deals with, as we mentioned before. Mitoch chibatan lefanav moneh otam kol sha'ah. The reason that Hashem counts the Jewish people is because there's a great love that Hashem has for the Jewish people. And when you love something, you like to go over it and count it again and again. So therefore, and it's the same thing that it says in Parashat Shemot, that even though the 70 that came down to Egypt with Yaakov Avinu were counted already in Parashat Vayigash, Hashem does it again in Shemot out of the love that Hashem has for the Jewish people.
Yes. Why Hashem need to see to Hashem to count? Hashem not can see how many people?
Very good. It's a beautiful question. So Rabbi Steinmetz is asking a very lovely question. So what is it? Hashem needs the number? Hashem knows without Moshe and Aaron counting. So it's a very, very powerful question. The Ramban says a beautiful answer. The Ramban says that over here, Hashem wanted there to be a connection between Moshe and Aharon. And by the way, as we're going to see, all the princes of each tribe came to help each tribe counting. So Hashem wanted there to be a connection between the head of every household and Moshe and Aaron. And the Ramban goes on to explain that Moshe and Aaron were such great tzaddikim, they had the midah called Tov Ayin. Tov Ayin means the good eye, which means that when a tzaddik lays his eyes on you, so automatically he has feelings of care for you. He desires that you should be successful. He desires that you should be healthy. He desires that you should have good. And then he prays to HaKadosh Baruch Hu for you on your behalf. And he blesses you. So the Ramban says that Hashem wanted that there should be the good, generous eye of Moshe and of Aaron on every single Jew of the nation, and that they should go around and they should bless everybody. It's a beautiful thing from the Ramban.
Like today in this community,
yeah.
Hashem wants the people to the community connection to the Rabbi.
Yeah, but this is just Baruch Hashem. This is not just the community. This is the whole Klal Yisrael, which is an amazing thing. Yes, and it actually goes even deeper. That's with respect to everybody else. But as we're going to learn, the tribe of Levi was a different league. Over there, they counted from age 1 month, all the boys from 1 month and up. So now that's a different issue. Because 20-year-olds, you can go to the guy's house and they come outside and you count them, right? But when it comes to babies, it's very difficult. So how are you going to go count 1-year-olds, 2-year-olds, 6 months old, right? So that was a whole big ordeal. that Moshe had to go through and figure out how to do. He was very concerned how to do that. But Abotai, that's the first thing. So they have this mitzvah of counting the Jewish people. Now, it's not a count for everybody, like we said. It's from 20 to 60. The question is why it says Kol Yotze Tzava B'Yisrael, anybody who's eligible to go to the army. The question is, why is it that you can only go to the army at age 20? Why is that the youngest? Why can't you go at 18? If you know in Israel today, they go to the army at age 18. In the Torah, it says no, 20 years old. What's the pshat? There are a bunch of different answers that I saw. The first answer that I saw is a practical one. It says that a person's body isn't fully developed until he's 20. He's not strong enough yet. He's not able to, that again, the Ramban says that. He's not physically there. He needs to be at least 20, and then he's ready to go to the army. That's the first answer. Second answer I saw very interestingly, as you know, it says in Pirkei Avot that 18 lechupa, when you're 18, you get married. So the halacha is at some point in your 18th year, turn 18, you're supposed to get married, right? That's what it says. Now it says Naki yeh lebeito, right? He's got to be shana rishana, he's home, meaning he does whatever work he has to do, but nighttime he's there, he's at home, no games. He's got to be with his wife. He has to make his wife happy. If he's out in the army, he can't do that. Therefore, a whole year after 18, he's got to be together with his wife. So then after that, now he's eligible to go to the army at age 20. But until then, he cannot. He has to be with his wife.
Everybody got married in 18 years old?
Apparently, you should know, Rabbi Kaniel was very strict about this with all of his children and grandchildren. Then 18 years old, boom, you go and get married right away. No games. Even nowadays. Huh?
I know a story that 18, the father tells his son that they're going to have a big birthday for you and bring all your friends.
Okay.
So the kid very happy, bring all his friends. When the party is over, the father says, here is your suitcases. Have a nice day. Go outside now. Where am I going? Go in the street now. What are you talking about? I'm 18. No. You have to go move out and go on your own. And the father throws the son actually out of the house and he says, go sleep on the street. I don't care. You don't belong in the house, anything. You had a party, the out 100% and throws the kid in the street.
Jewish?
No.
Are you telling me a real story?
Real story, yeah.
Okay. All right.
He's
It sounds so Rabbi Simon says it sounds like a goy, right? It is a goy. Okay. Fine.
And he sleeps over and cries and then he finally becomes a mechanic.
That's a different style of parenting, I would say. Yeah. Okay, very good. Fine. So that's the second idea. So again, one is about the physical strength of the person. Age 20 is when he's able to be really strong. The second pshat has to do with the idea that he has to get married. And the third pshat is very interesting as well. The third pshat says that, as you know, the court in halacha can punish somebody when he's bar mitzvah. Bar mitzvah already is considered to be an adult. At 13, you're an adult. However, that's court by us. But it says Bed Din Shel Ma'ala, which means the heavenly court, only punishes when you are at age 20. He's not considered to be a bar onshim until age 20. So over here, there's a big difference between somebody who's under 20 and after 20. Why? Because we all know that survival in war is dependent upon one thing and one thing only. Hashem watching over you because you're a good boy. Make a long story short. You're a good boy and you do mitzvot and Hashem is going to protect you. And you know that if you've done things wrong and you messed up, then Hashem is not going to protect you, right? You know that. And that's why it says anybody who spoke in between his tefillin shel yad and tefillin shel rosh, right? He wouldn't go out to war. He knows that he spoke in between this and that. You're not supposed to speak. You say the beracha on this, and you put on your head tefillin, no talking. But this guy knows that he was very loose about that. He would speak. I've seen that, by the way. It's a terrible sight. You see a guy who puts on his tefillin, phone call in the middle, walking around for 5 minutes on the phone while he didn't put on his tefillin shel rosh yet. People have no idea. It's a big problem. Can't do that. So this guy knows he's got that problem. Or it could be between Yishtabach and Yotzer Or. He's speaking, he talks, he shouldn't be talking, okay? So therefore, he knows he's got this problem, and he knows that he lost the divine protection from Hashem. Now, before 20, he wouldn't get punished. But after 20, he would get punished. Why? Because now he's a Bar Onshim. So therefore, he's much more careful after age 20 because he knows now it's real. Now he's in the big leagues, and Hashem would find the moment of opportunity if his life was on the line to get him. So therefore, he's much more careful in his observance of the mitzvot, and that's why it's more appropriate for such a person to be a soldier in the army of Hashem because he's on his game. He doesn't just do whatever. He's watching himself so he doesn't make mistakes. Yeah, you had a question?
You said from Ishtabach to you're not supposed to talk?
In between Ishtabach and Yotzer Or, you're not supposed to speak.
What is Yotzer Or?
Right after Baruch Hu, you say Yotzer Or V'choshech, right? The blessing after Baruch Hu.
Let me tell you in his language. From the time you get married, you cut it short.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean
right?
You mean after Ishtabach?
After Ishtabach, sometimes a person might he might start talking. The only time you're allowed to talk after Ishtabach is if it's for the tzorech of the tzibur, if it's for the need of the community. It means if the community needs something, right? So it's something for the community that you could talk. Yeah, something that the community needs to know, like to announce Ya'aleh V'Yavo, that today's Rosh Chodesh, something like that.
But basically till Shema Yisrael.
No, you're not supposed to speak all the way till after Amidah. You cannot talk anything, ever. From Baruch She'amar all the way till Amidah ends, you're not supposed to talk. You understand? Yeah, no speaking. Okay. Yes.
Can you still put on lacquers for cell phone? And you can charge the phone on the lacquers?
Yeah, that's good. That's a good thing. You have a question?
The phone calculation comes Bar Mitzvah 13 or 20.
So a person is a Bar Onshim, which means he can be punished by the legal court of men when he's 13. But in Shamayim, a person is not punished until he's 20. Here's the difference. So let's say a 14-year-old boy takes a gun and he points it at somebody, and two witnesses come and say, if you pull the trigger, they will kill you. You'll be executed by the sword, right? So then he shoots. He says, I accept your warning. He shoots. So then the halakha says they take him, they kill him, even though he's only 14 years old, right? But a person that does something, let's say some kind of avera, let's say he ate a pepperoni pizza. Nobody saw it, right? So Hashem wants to punish this person, but he will not punish him if he was 15 years old or 16. Why? Because he only begins punishing somebody at age 20. That's why the Gemara says that when a person turns 18, Hashem sits and waits for him to get married. He wants the guy to get married very young. And then if he's 20 and he doesn't get married, at that point Hashem says, Tipach atzmotav, may his bones rot, which is a very kind of crazy thing. Meaning to think about that. Most 20-year-olds have this. So what the yeshiva guys do, the night that they turn 20 and they're not married yet, they learn all night. So the learning of the Torah should protect them, that they shouldn't have, it's called tipach. They learn the whole night so that they should be protected from this thing. But again, why at 20? Because 20 is the age where Hashem begins to punish. Okay, fine. So I think last year, it says over here, so count everybody, lebet avotam, right? It's called Rosh Kol Adat Bnei Yisrael Mishpatam lebet avotam, b'mispar shemot kol zachar legulgilotam. So you need to go and to get each person's name, and you have to count them. And the word is legulgilotam. Now the word gulgolet means a skull. So do a head count of everybody, right? You need the number of people. So they say over here, I think last year we spoke about it, but it's very cool to talk about. Gula Gilotam is the idea that Moshe and Aaron, when they go around and they count people, they're not just counting people. When they look at you, they see all your previous Gilgulim as well. The Ari HaKadosh says that. They see your previous reincarnations too. They see what's going on with you, where your tikkun needs to be, how you can improve yourself. They see all of that. So you go around to each Jew, you're able to see the Gilgulim, the previous lives of that person. There's an interesting discussion amongst the poskim. I think, amongst the Mekubalim and everybody, what happens? We know that eventually there's going to be Tchiyat HaMetim, right? It's one of the 13 principles of faith. The person doesn't believe in Tchiyat HaMetim, resurrection of the dead. He's like a kofer, right? He doesn't believe in the one of the 13 principles of the Rambam. It's like kfirah. It's like denying a main part of the Torah. So we believe wholeheartedly that eventually the dead will be resurrected. There are prophecies about this. There are points in the Torah about this, many different allusions to it.
Means comes to life.
Yes. So the big question that everybody asks is, if a person has many different reincarnations that he lived, so could be in one life he was this person, in a different life he was another person, etc. So then when the dead come back, so who does he come back as? Does he come back? What?
The first one or the last?
So the best prototype right here. So there are lots of different opinions about this subject. Many different opinions. Some say that indeed it's the first one that was created. That was the original. That was the way it was supposed to be. He messed up. He had to come back in different forms, but the best one was the first one. That was what the original intention was supposed to be. Some say no, the opposite, because of the fact that he had to go through all the different reincarnations to fix himself. So the last one is the one that's supposed to be resurrected, because the last one was the one that reached the completion. Saw an amazing shot from Rabbi Yitzchak of Berdichev. He says no. He says not this and not that. It's actually in the middle. Hashem takes you see, one person cannot fulfill all 613 mitzvot, because there are certain mitzvot that apply to one type of guy, another mitzvah applies to a different type of person, and each mitzvah corresponds to a body part. Like, for example, the Chavetz Chaim writes in the opening of Hilchot Shabbat that the mitzvah of Shabbat corresponds to your heart, right? So Shabbat is your heart, right? So it could be that, that this one was very good in his observance of Shabbat. So that person's heart will be the one that comes back in Tchiyat HaMetim. Another guy was very good in his observance of Tefillin. So his arm will come back for that, right? And Hashem will take the best of all the different bodies that existed and combine them all into one. That's where Rabbi Yitzchak of Berdichev said. What? Okay, then we know the different Gilgulim. Okay, I understand. Okay, good. There are different. There are different explanations. Obviously, the answer at the end of the day is we're gonna have to wait and see. Some want to say, like what Mr. Shillian said, that the best one, the one that will be, that was the best one out of all of them, is going to be the one that will come back. So we had different opinions here. Okay, so everybody had to say over here. See, the Barbanel said, "Guf harishon yakum latchiyah." The first one will come back. So again, lots of different opinions exactly what will happen. Exactly. So we have to wait and see, I guess. Be'ezrat Hashem. Okay, good. So now I want to share with you a couple of important chidushim on the parasha. I'm sure you've heard of some of these, but one of them is a beautiful chidush that I'm going to read to you the midrash that I don't think we've ever discussed before in this parasha. The midrash tells us the following: this parasha is going to discuss the formation of the Jewish people in the desert. Now, if you take a look, take a look in your Chumashim, you'll see the way that the Jewish people formed their formation in the desert. Take a look if you guys want. Look at your Chumash, and if you take a look at the back of your Chumashim, you'll see over here, beautiful. Just gonna find the page. 1 second, guys. It's a beautiful diagram of it. If you guys want to take out your art school Chumashim, I'll show you in the back. Those on Zoom, I'm going to show you in just a minute. Let me just find the page. Okay, page 1344. So what you have over here, okay, page 1344, beautiful picture.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, hope it's not so blurry on mine over there. Okay, so what you have over here is, okay, beautiful, the setup of the Jewish camp in the desert, and this was a mitzvah that was commanded in this week's parasha. Now, bear in mind that this formation was not the case until this week's parasha. So now, at what year are we now? We're at the second year after they left Egypt, the second month. That means until this point, the Jewish people were not in this formation. So it's about a year later that now they're getting into this formation. So again, what do you have in the middle? In the middle, you have the Mishkan. Now there are three encampments. There's what's called Machane Shechina. Machane Shechina means the camp of the Shechina, of the divine presence. That's at the centermost point. That's called the Mishkan. Mishkan is the temple, the portable temple that was being moved whenever they traveled, and it was at the center of the Mishkan, of the camp. Now, surrounding that, who was there? The tribe of Levi surrounded the Mishkan. That's called Machane Leviah, the camp of Leviah, of the Leviim. The camp of the Leviim was divided into three tribes. Levi was divided into three tribes. You had Gershon, you had Kehat, you had Merari. All three tribes surrounded the Mishkan directly. So right around the Mishkan, who's there? The Leviim. Why are they around the Mishkan? Because the Leviim are the ones that have a mitzvah to transport the Mishkan from place to place. What happens is when the Kohanim when they would see that the cloud is moving, that means it's time to go. So the Kohanim had a mitzvah. At the end of the parsha, it says the Kohanim are commanded to pack up the Mishkan. They have to pack up the Aron Kodesh. They have to pack up the menorah. They have to pack up the shulchan. They have to pack up the beams. They have to pack up the mizbeach hazahav. They have to pack up everything. They have to put a certain cover over it and pack it up. And the reason they had to pack it up was because of the fact that if anybody who was a non-Kohen would look at it, and he wasn't allowed to look at it, he would. It's basically like risking his life. As a matter of fact, in the Navi, in Sefer Shmuel Aleph, it talks about how the Plishtim captured the Aron Kodesh. The Plishtim was a group that lived in like the Gaza area today, and they captured the Aron Kodesh in a battle against the Jews. And eventually they went through so much suffering in their cities, in Ashdod, in Gat, in all different, in the 5 cities that they had over there. What happened was they had a crazy plague of mice that would attack people while they were in the bathroom, as they were going from the behind, and they would rip out their intestines and they'd cause them crazy hemorrhoids. It's a scary, scary thing. So what happened was that the people, the people of these cities, they went to their sorcerers and they went to the people that were there, and they said, listen, you have to figure out why this is happening to us. So they said, maybe it's because of the Aron Kodesh that it's here, that we took the Aron Kodesh. Not only did they take the Aron Kodesh, they put it together in the house of idolatry. They had an idol called Dagon. They put the Aron Kodesh where the 2 stone tablets of Moshe were, the Sefer Torah was, and they put it in the house of idolatry of Dagon. So when that happened, this crazy plague took place, and they eventually came to the conclusion that this is because of the Aron Kodesh, and they decided to send it back. So they wanted to make sure that it was because of the Aron Kodesh. So they attached it to 2 cows that never worked before. They were moms that had little babies that never would leave their babies ever. And they wanted like proof that this was what was going on, because they took their own Kodesh. So this was why this was happening. So they sent them on a trip to see where they would go. And they started heading back to Israel. And they realized that this indeed was the reason. And they were carrying their own Kodesh, which was very heavy, on this wagon. And they actually sent as a tribute to Hashem, I'm sorry for taking their own Kodesh, they sent 5 golden images of hemorrhoids. What? What? The Plishtim. Yeah. They sent back 5 golden images of hemorrhoids. Hemorrhoids, when a person has a problem in his behind and his intestines start coming out, that's called hemorrhoids. So the mice went up there and pulled it out of Shemish. Sorry, Mr. Yishalmi, I apologize, but in Juri Nevishte. Okay? Okay? There you go. Fine. So basically, what happened was the Aron Kodesh made its way back to Bet Shemesh. Okay? Now, Bet Shemesh, there was a man by the name of Yehoshua. They took it into his field. He watched over it. But the people of Bet Shemesh, they didn't treat the Aron Kodesh properly. What was the big thing they did wrong? They looked at it. They looked at their own Kodesh. 70,050 people died because they looked at their own Kodesh. Now you have to understand, that's much more than the Plishtim ever got from us. So it turns out that by sending back their own Kodesh, we lost 70,000 people because they looked at their own Kodesh. We're not allowed to look at their own Kodesh. So then what happened was they decided that this is crazy. They sent it to Kiryat Yearim. They sent it to another city, Kiryat Yearim, and over there was properly guarded, and the person who had it in his home was blessed, and everything was good, but they properly took care of it. So it's like playing with fire. So over here, at the end of the parasha, Hashem tells Moshe and tells Aaron, don't let the tribe of Kehat die. Why would I let them die? Because if you don't cover up the tribe of Kehat is the tribe of Levi. Again, the tribe of Levi divides into 3 tribes. Gershon, Kehat, Merari. Kehat was the group that was supposed to carry the Aron Kodesh. So he tells them, don't cause their deaths. Why would we cause their deaths? The answer is because if you don't cover it up first before they arrive and they see it, they're going to die. Right? They're going to die.
What is Aron Kodesh that you have to see?
The Aron Kodesh is what is in the Holy of Holies.
What is it? Is it like a Mishkan?
It's a vessel in the Mishkan. Yes, it's a vessel in the Mishkan that's made of wood. It's plated with gold on the inside, gold on the outside, and it contains the 2 stone tablets Moshe brought up from Har Sinai, brought down, and it contains the Sefer Torah that Moshe wrote, and it contains the broken stone tablets. It contains the holiest things in the Jewish people. So it's super holy.
The son of Levi that carried this, they wouldn't see.
What?
The son of Levi that carried.
They covered it first. The Kohanim covered it first. Then they would carry. All of the kelim had to be covered first, and only then would they be able to carry. Cover, exactly. Right. Exactly. Now, this is the formation that they were in the desert. So, as you see around over here, in the center is the Mishkan. The tribe of Levi that breaks down into 3 tribes is around the Mishkan. And then you have, on all 4 sides, 3 tribes. 3 tribes on each side. Okay? Now, this is a very important lesson. There are lots of important things to say over here, a tremendous amount of things to say. I just want to point out a couple of things, okay? So, the way that the Mishkan is set up is that everything is going from east to west, okay? Over here, it's north-south, but you should know that the way that Mishkan is set up is east to west. So the entrance is coming from the east, going to the west, okay? Coming to the east, going to the west. Now, starting at the east, going to the west. And it was like that in Bet HaMikdash too. You start off on the east, and you go to the west. The western wall in Israel, the Kotel, is the back of the Bet HaMikdash. You understand? Right? The Kotel, the western wall in Israel, is the back of the Bet HaMikdash. Because you start off from the other side on the east, going in, right, to the west. That's why they tell you that when you go on the tunnel, in the Kotel tunnels, they'll show you right over here is the spot of the Kodesh HaKodeshim. On the other side of this wall, this was where the Kodesh HaKodeshim was. And you'll see people davening over there for their shidduch and everything. Because why? Because that's the innermost part. You start off on the outermost part on the east side, and as you're walking further, you're going west, till you go all the way in. But the Mishkan was the same thing. Clear?
No, not really.
Okay, let's do it again. Ready?
First of all, when they
You know what you
they
do?
move from this side or they
No. Turn it like this, okay? This is how they start off. This is where the
Okay.
entrance to the Mishkan is, over
Okay.
here.
I got
And you
it.
come in that way. Clear?
Okay.
That's all I'm saying.
Okay. So now
Okay.
when they move,
Yeah.
they move in this direction.
Wherever they have to go. They move in this formation, whichever way they have to go. Now,
Okay.
one of the most important lessons here, I mean, there's so many things that we need to talk about here, but let's just point out something which is very simple and very, very important to understand. If you look at the way the Mishkan was set up, okay, so turn it this way now, okay, turn it this way so that you see it east to west, okay. So again, the green section over here in the middle is the tribe of Levi. They are right around the Mishkan, right? On all three sides, they're around the Mishkan. At the entrance of the Mishkan, you know who's there? Moshe has a tent there, and Aharon has a tent there too. Okay?
The template, the Levimi, they are.
The Levi in the green area.
Oh.
So right at the entrance, when you walk in, whose tent is there? Moshe's tent is there, Aaron's tent is there. Okay. Now, on the left side of the Mishkan, is the tribe of Kehat. Okay? Can you guys imagine that? You see now the Mishkan in the middle. On the left side of the Mishkan is Kehat. Okay? I want you to pay attention to who is directly to the left of Kehat. You see where the word Levi is in the green box? So that's where it says, that's where Kehat was. Directly to the left of Kehat was the tribe of Reuven. Okay, you see Reuven directly to the left? Okay, the way that they set it up in this picture is that they're all in long lines. But
What is here?
correct, so Kehat, I know, but I'm saying the first one technically is Reuven. Okay, so over here, Chazal point out something very, very important, and that is like this. If you look later on, Zashem in Sefer Bamidbar, we're going to get to Parashat Korach. Parashat Korach starts off Vayikach Korach ben Datan, Korach ben Yitzhar ben Kehat ben Levi, Vedatan ve'Aviram ve'on ben Pelet b'nei Reuven. Right? It says that Korach started a rebellion. Korach was the son of Yitzhar, the son of Kehat. Where's Kehat? Kehat is right here. That tribe of Kehat, right? And it says, and On ben Pelet and Datan and Aviram, who were where? Bnei Reuven. They were the sons of Reuven. And they decided to rebel against Moshe. Right? So over here, the Chazal say that we learn a very important lesson, which is Oy la Rasha ve'oy lishcheno. Right? Woe unto the Rasha and woe unto his neighbor. Why? Because Korach was so close in proximity to Reuven that as he was starting the ruckus of all the different complaints that he had against Moshe, the people that were closest to him were the ones that heard everything he had to say, and he was able to convince them to join with them in the rebellion. So therefore, Chazal teach us that woe unto the Rasha, meaning Chaval that such a person is so wicked. He was a big tzaddik, Korach. But Chaval that he's so wicked. But Chaval that you're the neighbor of the wicked person also, because you get sucked into his, and in this case, literally sucked into his rebellion, that he got sucked into the ground.
Corner here.
Correct. Exactly.
On the corner.
And he was right next to Reuven. Exactly. So that's a very important lesson. Now, on the other hand, Chazal point out that the people that were next to Moshe, who was right next to Moshe? You had Yehuda, you had Yisachar, and you had Zevulun. So Rashi points out that Yehuda had many, many, many great Talmidei Chachamim. They eventually were the tribe that became the kings of the Jewish people. Yisachar had over 200 heads of Sanhedrin. Yisachar had 200 heads of Sanhedrin. The Sanhedrin is the high court of the Jewish nation. 200 of them for years were from the tribe of Yisachar. And Rashi attributes that to the fact that they were in close proximity to who? To Moshe, right? To Moshe. And then it goes even further. Who else do you have there? Zevulun. Rashi says over there in Parashat Korach that Zevulun had the tribe had incredible sofrim, people that were scribes. So again, so all three of those tribes that were
My neighbors should be very expensive. That's what I'm saying.
indeed,
But
right?
if you take
So
Korach was here. That means Korach was also next to the Bulun. What the Bulun didn't have a good people.
so I'll be honest with you, this picture is a little bit funny. The way that it's usually set up is that it's not side by side, but rather back, one behind the other, behind the other. So it's a little bit different the way they did it over here. But bottom line is that all three tribes that were next to Moshe, Yehuda, Yisachar, and Zevulun, they all had incredible success in Torah. Zevulun also produced many incredible Sofrim scribes. Why? Because they were in close proximity to Moshe.
Yeah.
So this is really an amazing thing,
So we are
right?
very lucky.
Location, exactly.
Yeah,
It's everything,
We're
right?
lucky you came to Shelly Lane.
I'm lucky, right?
How about the ones that are away from Moshe, like let's say like Benjamin and Ephraim?
So they were away from Moshe, but they weren't close to Korach either. So a lot of people, it's an interesting thing, we're not learning Korach, but there's a story about the Yismach Moshe, that the Yismach Moshe remembered his previous reincarnations, talking about reincarnations. The Yismach Moshe, the grandfather or the great-grandfather of the first Satmar Rebbe. His name was the Yismach Moshe, of Moshe Teitelbaum. He was a huge tzaddik. So he said, he remembers his previous lives. And he said, at one point, he was a sheep of Yaakov Avinu. He remembers what Yaakov Avinu sang as he was on the way to Esav. He remembers his nigun. That's what he says. He says also, he remembers being in the desert with Korach. And his kids asked him, so whose side were you on? Were you on Moshe's side or Korach's side? He said, I stayed neutral. I was par. If I wasn't here, I wasn't there.
By the way,
He stayed out of it.
that's why Ephraim and Menashe not far from Moshe, because they have the blessings. Mochai Elokim, Ephraim and Menashe.
Here, beautiful, very nice. Not so far away. So the question is like this: where did this form come from? Where did this idea that Naphtali, Asher, and Dan are in the north, Yehuda, Issachar, Zvulun in the east? Where did this come from? Right? So this is a very interesting thing. So I saw a midrash today, beautiful midrash, that says the following idea. Take a look at this amazing midrash. It says like this. Okay. Huh? So I'll read to you right now. So it's really amazing. בשעה שאמר הקדוש ברוך הוא למשה, עשה אותם דגלים כמו שנתאוו. So when Hashem told Moshe, I want you to make the Jewish people divided up into different groups, right? And different three groups for each side of the Mishkan, 3 tribes for each side. So Moshe was very concerned. He said, you know what? Now is going to be a problem. Now there's going to start to be perhaps some arguments between the tribes. Because what happens if I say to Yehuda, you should be in the east. He says, no, I want to be in the south. Right? So too for the tribe of Reuven, Ephraim. What do I do? If they start arguing, how am I going to tell them, yeah, you should be closer? Now, by the way, remember, the closer you are to the Mishkan, the more holiness you're getting, right? So there could be some fighting over here. And there's a certain amount of Kiddusha, even in the building of the Mishkan itself. Remember, they had to write letters on the board, on the planks of the Mishkan, in order to remember where each plank, where each beam is supposed to be. You know why? Because if, let's say, one beam is closer to the menorah, right? And another beam is farther away from the menorah, so then that beam, if you take it further away, if you put it in the wrong spot now, you're lowering its sanctity because it was closer. It was closer to the holy object. You're taking it further away. You're now you're downgrading it. So everybody's got what to say about where they're going to be right now. Everyone wants to be in the prime location. So he says, what am I going to do, Hashem? There's going to be a fight because of this. Amar la Kadosh Baruch Hu, Moshe, Hashem says to Moshe, Ma ichpat lach, en tzuchim lach, what's your problem? They don't even need you. Me'atzmam hem mekirim diratam, they know already where to set up. Why? Because yesh be'adam Yaakov avihem, he'ach lishrot bat galim. They know exactly from Yaakov, their father. What does that mean? Eini mechadesh aleim, I'm not teaching them anything new. They far yesh lehem tachsis miYaakov avihem. They already have a method from Yaakov, their father. כמו שטענו אותו והקיפו את מיתתו, כך יקיפו את המשכן. When they had to carry, when the original 12 tribes, meaning the 12 sons of Yaakov, had to carry Yaakov to his burial, Yaakov gave them instructions exactly who stands where, who holds which part of his casket, and where does everybody stand, and who's allowed to touch his casket, and who's not allowed to touch his casket. He gave them instructions. He says like this, it says like this, Amar Rabbi Bar Chanina, when Yaakov was about to die, he called his sons, and he says like this, he says, when you take my casket, I want you to take it with fear and with respect. No one else is allowed to touch my casket, he says. Not any Egyptian and neither any of your children. Because you married Canaanite women, so your kids are not like you. That's what Yaakov told them. They're very interesting. So it says like this, and it says, his children did what he said, not his grandchildren. Why? Because his grandchildren were not allowed to touch the Aron. Ela amar lehem banai. This is how you do it. Yehuda, Yisachar, Zvulun yit'anu mitatim min hamizrach. So Yehuda, Yisachar, and Zvulun carry my casket on the east. Reuven, Shimon, and Gad yit'anu mitatim min hadarom. Reuven, Shimon, and Gad will carry me from the south. Ephraim, Menashe, Binyamin will carry me from the west. Dan, Asher, and Naphtali will carry me from the north. Yosef alitan. Yosef is not allowed to carry me. Why? Shehu melech, because he's a king. You have to give him respect. Levi alitan. Levi should not carry me. Why? Shehu toenet aron, because he will ultimately be the one to carry their own kodesh. Umishu toenet arono shel chei olamim. Eino toenet arono shel met. Whoever is going to carry the aron kodesh is not allowed to carry my body, right? Eventually, his tribe will carry their own kodesh, so he can't carry my body. So he says, and therefore he says, if you do what I tell you, then Hashem will bless you all. And eventually, you'll have massive tribes that will all have their own flags. And by the way, that's what happened. We came down with 70 people. In this week's parasha, we come out with 603,000, I believe, are counted. Tremendous amount of people. This bracha came true. So Abotai, it's a really amazing thing. So Yaakov Avinu already instructed them how to do it. Now I want to express exactly what happened over here. Yaakov saw exactly what Moshe was saying. There's potential for incredible fighting and arguments over here. There's a potential for huge machloket, huge. So he was, basically aware of that, and he didn't let that happen. Yaakov gave the instructions of what to do ahead of time, so there should be no argument. So Moshe Rabbeinu also didn't have to deal with that because there was already no argument. This is the setup. It's already there from Yaakov Avinu. And why is it so important? Because Yaakov Avinu was what united all the tribes together. They all had one father, Yaakov. That's what made them all one unit. So over here, we had a question before. Why is it that until now, it's a year in already, it's 1 year since they left Egypt. Why is this the first time that we're hearing about the formation of the Jews in the desert? The answer is, the Farshim say beautifully, because what happened over here is that the Mishkan was only just built 1 month before. What unites all of the Jewish people? Every tribe is different. Each tribe has a separate flag. Let's say Dan has a snake on his banner, right? You have Yisachar. Why? Because it says Dan, he Dan Nachash. Dan should be like a snake. He should be very powerful. It says that Issachar had a sun and the moon because they were very wise and brilliant. They were able to calculate the stars in the sky and all kinds of things like that. Everybody had a different banner. Everyone had different strengths and things like that. But there was one thing that was a common denominator between everybody, which is the Mishkan is in the middle. But until you have the Mishkan, then there is no middle. There's nothing to put in the middle. So therefore, the first time that this could happen was only after the Mishkan was finally built and inaugurated. So now the Mishkan could be in the middle and everybody else could have the setup around it. Is it clear? That's the connection between Yaakov Avinu and the Mishkan. But that's why the form is the same format. All right, guys, there's a lot more to say over here, obviously, but we'll call it a night. Chazakim Ruchim. Thank you very much, guys, for joining us on Zoom. If we have any questions, guys, don't feel ashamed to ask. You're more than welcome to voice your questions over there on Zoom, too. If not, we'll call it a night.
I'm before 20 years old, you're saying, huh?
That's right.